Welcome to Wilder Wolves Hall of Fame Mode Fandom. My name is Wilder Adams, and this is Wolves Fandom Friday, and we are at the halfway point of the season. On top of it, 27-14, and what better timing? I am joined by Ryan Newman, who is a big-time Timberwolves fan who is ready to unleash his takes on the team. He's going to give us some mock trades, and we're just going to go from top to bottom, talk about this basketball team. Wolves Fandom Friday. Ryan, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. It took us a little while to get this rolling, but we're here now, and I'm happy.
There's nobody. I think it's so underrated, actually. Like when we do shows, just getting the technology right. It's the pre and after stuff that's always. It takes time to get figured out, but you know what? Now we're just here to have fun. We're here to play and just talk some basketball. So before we get started in today's show, I am so thrilled to tell you guys about the first ever Wilder Wolves podcast sponsor, 612 Tees. 612 offers a wide range of uniquely designed Minnesota sports tees, and you can see these awesome Timberwolves options right here. Because I am chronically online, the one that resonates with me is the Wizard of Nas t-shirt, because I've spent a lot of time making memes, and I once made a Wizard of Nas meme, so it comes to life in this t-shirt, and I am definitely going to buy one. But there's not only Timberwolves tees here, because you can look up here. There's a ton of different sports. You can also get crew necks, accessories, etc. There's a lot of Nas Reed agenda right here, and we always promote a Nas Reed agenda on Wilder Wolves. And then you see this really sick Justin Jefferson crew neck. Use the code Wilder25 to get 25% off your first purchase. It's a great way to support a small business, and it also helps this show out quite a bit, so definitely check them out. Ryan, so excited to have you on, and we're going to get right into it. So I want to ask you, so we always do this Wolves Fandom Friday. We ask the guests on the show, a fan on the show, what's your Hall of Fame fan moment, which is essentially just what is the story or the moment that just resonates with you and tells you this is why I'm a Timberwolves fan. So Ryan, could you tell me your Hall of Fame fan moment?
Man, honestly, if I were to have to define, why I'm a fan, it would have to be just, going to games with my mom as a kid. My mom, she was actually who got me into the Timberwolves at a very young age. I was about 5 or 6 when she took me to my first game. And I believe we were playing the Raptors, like very early T-Mac, Vince Carter days. And I just remember not a whole lot. I was young, but I remember sitting in my seat watching the Toronto Raptors warm up because we were on their side of the floor, and seeing Tracy McGrady and Vince Carter, dunk and everything like that, to what they were doing just in warm-ups, kind of got me hooked. And then as the year went on, I watched more Timberwolves games and stuff like that, and Kevin Garnett, and it just, I think Stephon Marbury was on that team. That was right before we got rid of him. And then my mom, the very next season, actually got me season tickets for my birthday. So I was very excited about that. And so that would probably be my moment, is literally just getting season tickets and starting it all out at a young age. And I guess if you were to look at like what's the biggest, when I was the best memory, it is probably that Game 7 against the Sacramento Kings, being in the building for that. It was just super exciting. The building was electric. Kevin Garnett had this aura about him where, he always was able to captivate the fans and make you feel like the fans were one with him. Anthony Edwards kind of has that same type of deal where, anything that Anthony Edwards does, you get oohs and ahs from the crowd, because, it's just like back then Kevin Garnett was our identity. We wouldn't have been anything without him. And so, yeah, I would just say that Game 7, him dropping, I think, 32 and 21, and it was a nail biter, but, it was our first real taste at success in the organization. So
shout out to you, man, because you've been through all of it then. You've been through the good times with KG and Marbury and that whole squad. Then you went through 15 plus years of just questioning the team, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What was that like, just enduring that every year for 15 years?
Man, honestly, it was very up and down. I would just describe it as every era you felt like there was going to be hope. like when we drafted Rubio and we we missed on somebody else, number 30 out in Golden State. But Rubio, honestly, I was very excited for, just because of his flashy play. There were some questions when we drafted him if he was even going to come over to the NBA and if he even wanted to come to Minnesota, because there was rumors that he was going to go to New York or he wanted to go to New York. But so the Rubio era was actually really fun. I remember being at the first game he was here, and once again, his flashy plays, everything that Rubio did on the court, the crowd just oohed and awed with it. He would throw a simple bounce pass, and the crowd would just go, "Whoa, what was that?" So it was fun during the Rubio days. We didn't do a whole lot of winning. Every time it felt like there was some expectations to be had, we just didn't meet them for whatever reason, injuries, no bench. Sometimes, we had JJ Barea. We missed on Derek Williams. That was a debacle of a time. But and then honestly, you trade Kevin Love, and obviously he was a great player. He was fun as well. But you trade Kevin Love, and then you bring in Andrew Wiggins, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, you know, like we weren't expected to get Wiggins. Wiggins was actually getting talked about quite a bit going into the draft. It was like, oh, this guy's the next LeBron or the next Kobe. And if I remember right, I think Kobe even his rookie year mentioned that, oh, he reminds me of me. Now, unfortunately, Wiggins didn't have that killer mentality, or maybe he would have been, or he would have been at least an all-star level player for us. But yeah, that Wiggins era, Levine, Karl Anthony Towns, obviously when we brought him in, that felt like hope. That felt like, okay, we're gonna turn this around. And don't get me wrong, it was again another fun era. We won a little bit more. I know there was one season where we won around 36, 37. It wasn't a whole lot. Rubio actually played really good that year. Nemanja Bjelica was like our X Factor guy, because I remember when he got hurt, that's when everything, for whatever reason, started to go downhill that season. But yeah, man, that Wiggins and Cat and Levine era was fun, and it felt like that was going to be our moment where we were going to grow together. And then Tom Thibodeau comes in and kind of breaks things up there, brings in Jimmy, and then we had that whole we broke the playoff curse, so there was that. But man, like that was a whole situation all to itself as well. So I mean, you can just keep going on and on until we drafted Anthony Edwards. Um, you know, Shout out to Karl Anthony Towns for staying with us through some of those ups and downs. A lot of those ups and downs. Not even just with the roster, but with all the coaches as well. You saw a lot of different coaches, a lot of even GMs while he was here. So, seeing Towns be loyal here, and he was actually like he gets a lot of flack, because he wasn't that superstar that we wanted him to be. But at the end of the day, like, he's probably the third best Timberwolf in our franchise history. He gave us some great memories, and at the end of the day, he was a part of the first team that got us back to the playoffs in 2018, and then as well as those fun teams with Patrick Beverly and Vando, and then obviously the Western Conference Finals run, where a lot of people forget that he kind of rushed to come back from his injury that year.
He
And
did.
he had some ups and downs in the playoffs, but I think overall, he did pretty darn good for, coming back from an injury.
Man, I think shout out to you for that, because I think you definitely articulated the entire theme of this team the last, not just last few years, but last 20 years. Because
Yeah.
even when the team stunk, I think the fans that were there and loyal, we still remain stimulated by the idea of what these kids could become. And we had a
Mm-hmm.
couple trials and errors with eras, right? The Rubio K Love team, the best they got to
Yeah.
was 40 and 42. Then we got the Wiggins. We thought they were next. And then the Butler
Yep.
situation, plus their lack of development, mainly Wiggins. And then Anthony Edwards. And now we're here finally, third tries the charm, they say. And I think that applies with us with this iteration with the team. And now let's talk about this iteration of the team because they're 27-14. They're a game out of the second seed in the Western Conference right now. Best record since Thanksgiving. And weird start to the year, but now we're here. They're trending up. And I just want to ask you, how do you feel about this team now that we're exactly at the halfway point of the season?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel pretty good. I mean, we're like you said, a game out of the second seed, and we're coming off some big wins here in the last week or two, and we don't need to talk about that Hawks game, but overall, like the vibe is just really good around this team right now, and the fact that we're doing this without a real point guard running the show is pretty impressive. You look around the league, like who doesn't have a point guard? Everybody has a point guard. We don't. Our point guard is 37 years old and 20 years old, and neither of them really play very much. So
Mm-hmm.
Bones Highland has been a revelation, which is crazy to say, but he's been super awesome. In the minutes that he's been given, and even just the other day against Milwaukee, he was fun to watch. 23-5 for a guy who started to get written off. I mean, before he came here, I remember even when he did come here, there was a lot of people questioning. He's probably just gonna sign a two-way deal. He won't ever play because Rob Dillingham is next up, and there was always that belief that we were going to trade for a De'Aaron Fox, a Darius Garland. There was,
Yeah.
And so far that hasn't happened. It's still possible, but I think where we're at right now, I don't think I want to shake up the roster too much. I think everybody's kind of in a groove right now. And with Julius Randle, the way he's able to really create gravity and handle the ball, pass, and stuff like that, create for others. Anthony Edwards is doing a much better job this year of just dissecting the defense, waiting for the doubles to come. And it's almost like now he kind of welcomes the doubles to come, whereas before, as we all know, like he was kind of hesitant, didn't like getting doubled because he wasn't able to go pop off for himself. But I think now he welcomes it. He trusts his teammates a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not even sure if they keep track of hockey assists in basketball, but he's got a lot of those this year. And that's where I think he's averaging like 3.7 assists per game. But that doesn't really speak to, the level of which he's playmaking this year. He's making a lot more smarter decisions in the tougher moments. And Jaden McDaniels too. He's been awesome with handling the ball, and he's making a lot better decisions now too. And I think part of that is due to the fact that he is handling the ball better. He trusts his playmaking, and we see him throw a lot of lobs to Rudy. And he's making a lot of strides here as an offensive player in general. He's averaging like 51% from the field, 41% from three. Jaden McDaniels has been a huge part of our season, and then obviously Rudy Gobert and what he's been doing defensively. Very well could win Defensive Player of the Year. So all in all, man, I feel pretty darn good with where we're at. And if we do end up making a deal, I'm very much hoping that it's not going to shake up the roster too much, because I think at this point of the season we're catching our stride. You look at OKC; they haven't been playing up to their standard of late. So who knows? And injuries happen, man. In the playoffs,
Mm-hmm.
anything can happen. So I feel really good about where we're at right now.
Yeah, I love every point you made. It's funny because I feel like when you win a lot of basketball games, and Minnesota has, there's one side where somebody says, you know what, now it's really time to capitalize. Like, let's lean in now. Let's lean in. But then there's the other side of, okay, maybe you're just really good right now and you don't want to shake it up. And I think that's going to be a really interesting debate, especially because, like you said, Bones Highland, the way he's played, we've talked about, does this team need a point guard? Do they not? And progressively throughout the season, because people have said they need a point guard to really start establishing better pace of the game, help manage the game late and clutch. But then you're looking at the team right now, 11-7 in the clutch, number one fourth quarter team. Every month they've essentially increased in pace. So now you're kind of wondering, okay, how much do you want to shake this up, especially when Ant and Randall have, I think, made strides as decision makers this year. On a scale of 1 to 10, how badly do you think they need to make a tweak at the deadline?
Um, it's honestly pretty low, I think. I'd probably say a 3 or a 4 because I really feel like the tweak doesn't need to be tweaked within, the rotational guys. I mean, I think there's players in that $8 to $10 million slot that where we could just package Rob and maybe Terrence Shannon or Leonard Miller, and possibly bring in a quality player without necessarily trading any of the main guys. So I think I would probably have it pretty low, especially with what we just saw the other day with J. I know there was a lot of questions about our defense when Rudy's off the floor, but I mean, I know it's just one game, but we saw it in preseason. We see it in garbage time. We saw it in the summer league. We've heard Chris Finch and the staff, rave about him. So I really feel like J. It's crazy to say at 19 years old, but he might be the answer even going forward this year on a
Yeah.
on a hopeful championship run. He might be the backup center if all goes right, all goes out. We hope it does.
I totally agree. I mean, with the J thing, he's just I think people I think this okay, this is how I'm gonna say it. My brain's like going foggy. So the J thing. So I think when people talk about do they need a backup center? I've heard Chris Finch talk about, okay, well, if we get J in the rotation every single night, you're sacrificing minutes for Randall and Naz Reid. And a part of me just in regard to the backup trade conversation at the deadline, well, on the other hand, that would still apply if you had J or you had a different backup center. So why
Yeah.
invest other assets to get a backup center when you could develop this kid situationally at bare minimum? And
Yes.
I think the Bucks game was so important because we wanted to see where the kid was at. We had no idea. We liked what we saw in summer league. We liked what we saw in the G League. We liked the preseason, the garbage time, but meaningful basketball. I don't know what the stat is. How many players have a plus 30 in their first real stint playing 20 plus minutes? I'm not sure
Yeah.
there's a big list of that. So J just, I think he proved that he's worth the investment. And because he's so new to basketball, on one hand, you're like, is he ready? And on the other hand, you think about his rate of improvement. Like maybe he is ready. And I think we saw that sign. If I'm Minnesota, and in terms of we're talking about the need for a backup center, I would say it's like a 1. I don't think they need one. I think you play J and don't invest other assets because regardless, you're hoping Rudy plays 34 minutes a game in the playoffs. So is there 14 minutes to distribute creatively, whether you can get even Jaden McDaniel center minutes, or I don't think we'll see that, but that we saw that January last year. And then also give some to J, give him a shot. So I don't think they need a backup center. What do you think?
No, I agree wholeheartedly. You made the great point about not only can he do a lot of what Rudy does. Obviously not to that level yet, but I mean who knows? I mean he looked
Maybe
really good the
soon.
other night, but yeah, but just the fact that you can have that quality, even if you only play him 5 to 10 minutes, and even if it's not every night, just make it more consistent. So like you said, you can develop him, you can bring him along, and that hopefully by next year, he can play 15-20 minutes a night. And then obviously post Rudy Gobert, you hope that he just is able to just step in and be that starting center of the future. And I really think, we can. I think it was your last episode. You talked about, how maybe, this is just how Chris Finch is, with the Dillingham and Terrence
Mhm.
Shannon. Maybe he just doesn't like playing young guys. But I think J might be different for him because he does play defense. It really seems like for Chris Finch, you have to play defense if you want to play. And even
Yeah.
though I think Rob, he tries and he's made some strides there, it's hard to with the flaws that he has on offense with the turnovers and the shot selection, and he's just too small. I think he's just, and you said it, I think he's just not a Finch guy. And I
Mhm.
think Bones might be because he's basically a 25-year-old version, and I think he's a little taller than Rob as well. And so he has more length on defense,
He
and
does.
Bones has, since he's gotten here, has just been a professional. Like, he's not turning the ball over. Like, yeah, when he first started playing, there was a little bit of issues, but overall, for a guy who technically experience wise doesn't have a ton of experience in the league. He's been in the league, but he doesn't have a ton of experience playing real minutes. And so I've actually been very impressed with Bones Highland and how he's just been able to, kind of right the ship when he comes in. He pushes the pace. And when you can push the pace and limit turnovers at the same time, that's a pretty good trait as a point guard. And that doesn't even, you know, speak to how he's able to score. I mean, he's honestly, uh, one of our best shot creators, and I just think
Hmm.
when he's out there, even with Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle, like he knows who he is. Like, he doesn't look like he's in a position where Rob is, where like when he goes out there, it looks like he's very unsure of himself. Bones Highland seems like he knows who he is and what he's trying to do for this team.
I think we are learning about Chris Finch in a good way in real time right now because I think if you asked a lot of fans a couple months ago, it's black and white. He hates young players. He has something against Rob Dillingham, right? That's just going to be the NBA Twitter language. But I think we're learning that's just not entirely fair
Right.
because I think what we're seeing with Chris Finch is he coached in Europe for a decade plus, and I'm
Yeah,
sure he's adapted a lot of European aspects to his game.
for
Where
sure.
I think Chris Finch is very much a you have a star, you have utility players, and there's like a toughness and there's this veteranship that he wants on his squad because this is a
Yep.
contending squad. And
Yep.
in Europe, you have very little tolerance, understandably so. If you aren't going to do what I need you to do, I don't care how old you are, you're not going to play.
Yep.
And I think with Rob Dillingham, it's less of a like the kid lacks this or lacks that. I just think it's a maturity stage for him where what
Right.
Minnesota needs of him, it's somebody who's fully comfortable playing complementary basketball, playing mature basketball. And that's a lot to ask for a young point guard. That's just true.
It is. Yep.
And what makes Beringer different is that you could tell just his maturity and the way he plays is going to just translate in that team contending type setting. One, because his game is simple. He knows he's energy. He knows that he's a defender. He knows he's off ball offensively, but also he's played in Europe for multiple years. And I
Yep.
could just like watching him at the games, watching the little nuances on the bench, you can tell the kid gets it. He's sitting next to Rudy
Yep.
Gobert on the bench. During the huddle, he's going and he's listening to the coach and the players talk game plan. And a lot of the time, you're going to have some of the third string players kind of in the background in their own conversation and multiple young players. I'm not going to specify, it's not really worth it.
Right.
But we're seeing, on the other hand, Beringer is locked in, locked in.
Yes.
And I'm sure Chris Finch loves the maturity he has. That's why you hear Chris Finch
Mhm.
always say, the kid's doing his homework. He's getting good grades. We want to find minutes for him. I think that's genuine. He's not just here
Yeah.
saying the big bad young players. He's saying you earn your opportunity through showcasing your maturity and understanding how to play within a role. Bones Highland, similarly. Bones Highland has gone through the Rob Dillingham stage where when he was young, he wanted to have a role on the Nuggets when Murray came back. And it
Yep.
wasn't quite what happened. He kind of fizzed out there, went to the Clippers. James Harden came, didn't get his shot. So he kind of got pushed around partially because of his own immaturities and maybe some ego stuff. But he's in Minnesota, fully different personality. Hey, if you don't want me to be a bucket getter, I'll play off of Ant. I'll do the things you want me to do. I don't want to just be in the way in that regard. I think that stands out to a dude like Finch, which is why he is very happy, very willing to continue playing Bones as well.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, it seems like Bones really just learned from his mistakes that he may have made in Denver. And if you think about it, I mean, he's been around winning teams pretty much his entire career so far. So being around, all these great players, seeing them, work go in and out every day. I mean, he played with Jokic, like you said, Murray. I'm pretty sure, yeah, he played with Harden, and so he's around with all these guys, Kawhi, and obviously Ant here, Rudy Gobert. So I just think he's at a point now in his career where he's just trying to fit in and he's not trying to stand out. When you saw him play early on in his career, I mean, he still does it from time to time, but he loves going ISO. He loves showing off his great ball handling ability and stuff like that, and his shot creation. But I think he's learned that at least on this team, like that's not always what we need. Sometimes we do, but because we have Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle and Jaden McDaniels and all these other guys who need buckets, I think he's learned the ins and outs of what he has to do here.
No, absolutely. It's just, I think that's a great way to put it. He just knows how to fit in. And
Yeah.
maybe part of it is politically, where he knows if he doesn't fit here, he probably is out of the league. And you kind of have to either fit in or you're
Yeah.
not. So,
Yep.
regardless of what it is, he's doing it. And that's why he's getting rotation minutes. And I think why people
Absolutely.
are feeling growingly better about the point guard position. Because if Rob
Yep.
was doing what Bones is doing right now, I think we all would be like, okay, Rob, we're good. We don't need anything.
Absolutely. Yep.
So now let's,
No doubt.
at this final part of the show, let's talk about some of your trade ideas, because I know you have some good ideas cooking up, and I'm hearing this all first time as well, everybody on the show. So this is new to me. I am excited to hear, what are some of your mock trades?
Yeah, so basically, it's nothing too crazy. Like I said, I don't want to really shake up any of the main roster pieces, our top seven. But I feel like the main target we should be targeting is actually Io Dunsumu. Um, I actually am a big Kobe White fan. For some reason, he's just one of the guys I've rooted for since he came to the league. But I really think Io Dunsumu really fits our identity better. With the fact that he plays defense, he can knock down threes, and he's just more of a fit-in type of guy. He can really, I think, take over that Nickeil Alexander Walker hole that we're missing. Um, and I just think I'm hoping that maybe a Dillingham and you know Leonard Miller might entice them because Donsumu is expiring. Maybe you'd have to throw in a second or two, or maybe even Terrence Shannon Jr. instead of Leonard Miller. I might still do that just because I think Donsumu would fit so well on this team. He's averaging like 14 or 15 a game this year, so his offense has definitely improved. So you're getting a guy who really just plays with all-out effort. He's like Jalen Clark out there, except he's more advanced. He's like the Bones Highland of Jalen Clark's. Like, Bones Highland of Rob Dillingham. Donsumu is like Jalen Clark,
I
only
hear
more
that. I
advanced.
love that.
Yeah. So I think he would be super awesome to get. What are your thoughts on Donsumu?
I love that name because I think, on a couple hands, these are the type of names Minnesota needs to be aware of, especially the fans, because I would assume is making $7.5 million. And
Yes.
Minnesota, because they are a first apron team, they have to get back financially as much as they're getting out. If they take in
Yep.
more money, they can't make the trade. And
Right.
that's different from the second apron, because the second apron, you need to also take in as many players as you're giving out. So you can still do a 2-for-1. And if Minnesota is not going to deal Mike Conley, and nobody actually knows, but it's been kind
Right.
of established, Minnesota, unless there's a great reason, won't trade him. So,
Yeah.
and he's also so critical to the locker room. So if you're not
Absolutely.
trading Mike, if you're not trading Dante, you have to look at a combination of rookie contracts. And Rob Dillingham and Leonard Miller, they combined for $8.7 million. So we have to look
Yeah.
at players who are making 8.7 or less. And Ayodosumu is making 7.5. So that is a
Yep.
primary example of a player who would fit that criteria. And I also think he does fit better than a Kobe White for what you said, the defense, the shooting, the complementary stuff. Because Kobe White, you kind of have to adjust him in, give him his
Right.
looks, and you're also probably fading out Bones Highland because you need that
Yes.
skill set less. So
Yep.
Ayodosumu would be less drama on the team. He fits financially. And if you're the Bulls, I mean, getting a couple young players in a couple seconds for a guy who is probably leaving you, because Ayodosumu's on the later end of his contract too, that makes
Exactly.
sense. So I really love this idea.
And not only that, if you think about it, Mike Conley's going to be expiring at the end of the year. And if you trade Leonard Miller and stuff like that, um, you're opening up the possibility, because I think when Mike is off the books, I could be wrong, but I think we're going to be under the first apron. And if we're under the first apron, I think no matter what, we're going to have access to a mid-level. I'm not sure if Io would accept it, but I mean, if we're looking at a possible finals run, or if nonetheless we are in a much better spot than the Chicago Bulls currently are, and so I think him coming to a team like this where he could play a vital role on a contending team, it might entice him to come back for that mid-level or somewhere in that $8 to $12 million range. Um, and I mean, and that's kind of how I felt about Kobe White too. Like, even if we did pony up and trade for Kobe White with him expiring, I feel like if he really wants to play for a winner, like, there's not much of a better situation than you could go to if you're Kobe White than being the third or fourth option on the team and not having that pressure. A buddy of mine actually compared Kobe White to kind of prime D'Lo, maybe without the the I'm him, I'm me too, or I'm him too, whatever he said. Hopefully without that attitude, but yeah, I think Kobe White, a lot of what he does is it would be nice to have off the bench, but I feel like it might disrupt what the starters have going right now. Just because, like you said, he would probably take a few shots away from Ant or I would worry Jaden, because we know Jaden. Sometimes he likes to kind of fall back and get a little comfortable with just being out there. And I actually call it Wiggins syndrome with Jaden McDaniels, because like sometimes he's just out there and he's so talented, he's so good. We need to keep Jaden McDaniels involved and engaged and aggressive, because when Jaden McDaniels is aggressive, honestly, man, like he plays at a near all-star level. Like he can drop 18 to 20 points and guard the opposing team's best player. So I mean, he's a real X factor, and I think bringing in a scoring guard might take away from Jaden McDaniels, and I don't want that to happen.
I love that take. I fully agree. That's the big question. If you get a high usage player like that, who are you taking away from? And I think if we talked about this a month ago, or let's just say 2 weeks ago after they lost to the Hawks, I think people would be way more open to the idea of
Yep.
integrating somebody who's going to be expected to be a core player going forward. But with the team playing so well right now, and the team looking like one of the 3 to 5 best teams in the league, usually you don't
Yeah.
shake that up too much. A lot of the time, that's when a team goes after, like the Bucks a few years ago, they go after a Jay Crowder, right? Great teams usually don't shake up much, but add
Yeah.
one more really high level depth piece. And
Yeah.
I think they can do that possibly with 8.7 million under and less. And I have another name if you want to hear another name.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Sweet. How about Quentin Grimes?
Oh
Because
yeah. Mhm.
76ers, they're kind of in an odd situation where they are trying to figure out the Jared McCain thing. They kind of have a surplus of players, and it's not necessarily the most fluid situation with their guards. Like, they have
No.
a surplus right now. And I think
Yeah.
this team could use some wing scoring. And Quentin Grimes is young and he's having a good year. And who knows if the 76ers want to extend him with the money they're paying some players. It's I
Yeah.
think I think Quentin Grimes is going to get dealt possibly. And if he is, why wouldn't Minnesota try to get creative in that?
Right. And I do think with that, they might have to get creative, just because I'm not sure how much, Philadelphia will be interested in a Rob Dillingham, because they have so many young guards already.
Mhm.
Um, but, they might like a Terrence Shannon Jr. Like he might entice them a little bit. But then how
Yeah.
much is Quentin making? 8 or 9?
I think he's making like the qualifying, which is like 7 million.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, if you could do like a 3-team deal or something like that and send Rob somewhere else, and they could get Terrence Shannon Jr. another piece. Like I could see that because yeah, Quentin Grimes, like once again, he kind of fits that Nikhil Alexander Walker type, archetype where, he doesn't need the ball. He's a good shooter. He plays defense, and he's really gotten better as an all around scorer the last couple of years too. We saw last year, he really with nobody really healthy over there, he got a lot more touches, and you saw what he was able to do. So I think Quentin Grimes would be a nice fit here. Anyone like that archetype, like Keon Ellis. Um, I even he's not necessarily the defender, but I think even like a Malik Monk off the bench. I don't
Yeah.
know about Jaden Ivey, what the Pistons would want for Jaden Ivey, but he's another name who's expiring. He's a young guy. He's shown to be a pretty good scorer. Maybe he could be a spark plug off the bench. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely going to be names. I mean, and if you're going down the point guard route, I look at like T.J. McConnell. Like, what would
That's
the
another good
Pacers
one.
give up? Yeah, what would they want for
Yeah.
McConnell? Davion Mitchell. I'm not sure if the Miami Heat would move off of him right now, but he's another name that I'm looking at. If we're looking at a point guard, he would really
Mhm.
fit here. Plays great defense, moves the ball, and he's improved as a shooter. So
Yeah. No, I am fully with you on that. I think those are all the right names to think about. Now, like the Monk name, that's somebody who you would probably have to include Mike or Dante in.
yep, yep,
TJ McConnell, I think, is flirting around that $11 million range, if I'm not mistaken. So the
correct, yep,
big question is whether Minnesota is willing to deal Mike Conley, or how willing are they? Is a Malik
yeah,
Monk enough? Is TJ McConnell
right,
enough? If I just had to guess,
yeah.
I'm just purely guessing. I think the answer for both of those names is no, but I could be wrong as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think the only way that they would consider trading Mike is if he goes to a contender. So, like,
Yeah.
if Mike would consider Detroit a contender, I'm not sure they're ready. We'll see. It is the Eastern Conference; they might make it, but you know, the, a lot of times, even with a great young player like Cade Cunningham, you got to go through the trials and errors in the playoffs before you reach that
Mhm.
NBA Finals height. So I don't know if Mike Conley would consider Detroit a true contender, and if he'd want to go there. We all know, like when he got here, how big of a difference he made in that Western Conference Finals run, and then even the last couple of years, he's starting to fall off as a player, but as a leader and a locker room guy, it is really tough to think about getting off of him. And we saw what getting off of Kyle Anderson did. And that's another name we can look at in the buyout market is Kyle
True.
Anderson. Um, his leadership. He might not show up a ton on the stat sheet, but in the locker room, and he's kind of a connector out there. Defensively, he does help you out. So yeah, I think, and I think I heard Darren Wolfson and a couple other guys mention it too. If you did trade Mike Conley, I think you got to look into possibly bringing in a Kyle Anderson like player to replace some of that leadership in the locker room.
I love all those suggestions. Yeah, Kyle Anderson's a great one. I think that would add a lot to the locker room as well, especially if you keep a Mike Conley. And speaking of another
Yeah.
trade, I have a Quentin Grimes trade that I wrote up a couple days ago, if you want to hear that to close the
Okay.
show.
Yeah.
So, my Quentin Grimes and Minnesota Timberwolves trade. So, the Timberwolves, they get Quentin Grimes. The 76ers get Day'Ron Sharp in 2 seconds. And the Brooklyn Nets get Rob Dillingham and Leonard Miller. So the Nets, they traded Rob and Miller for Day'Ron Sharp. And then the
Yep.
Sixers, they get a backup big out of this. And they have a
Yes.
couple, they have the Drummonds, the Adam Bonas, but they could use some assurance with Embiid and his health. And
Yep.
they also get a couple of seconds for a guy who's going to walk away. So
Right.
I think that would be the type of deal Minnesota would have to make for a Grimes, because I don't think Philadelphia wants Rob with all the guards they have.
I agree.
So
Yep.
it would have to be a 3-team trade. And I think the Nets feel like a great candidate for any 3-team trade.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that works out. I mean, Day'Ron Sharp, I really like him as a backup big anywhere. He's really starting to show his offensive game a little bit. And yeah, I think that's probably the structure you would probably have to look at, for getting a Quentin Grimes like, or anyone again around the Sixers. If you're talking about bringing anybody in from there, just because the guy we're dangling is a young point guard, so that kind of works out. And yeah, man, I really like Quentin Grimes. Like I said, the last couple of years, he's really improved as a player, and I think he or Don Sumo would be perfect on this roster. I think they would really fit in well here without trying to stand out too much.
I think the ideal scenario at this deadline is if they can get a real, just high level contributing piece for anything under
Yes.
8.7 million. If they can do that, you keep the leadership that Mike Conley provides, and
Yep.
you get somebody like Ayo Dosunmu or Quentin Grimes, and it would stink to lose the youth with Rob and Miller, but
Yeah.
you get youth back with Ayo Dosunmu and Quentin Grimes. So I think those two would be my two top candidates this deadline. What do you think?
Yeah. No, I agree. That again, that really feels like the type of player we need right now more than anything. We can talk about point guards, but I think Bones Highland has done enough and shown enough to where you don't really need to give up a ton for a backup point guard. And then again, Dante, we haven't really talked much about Dante, but I mean, yes, people can get frustrated with his up and down shooting, but he just does so much on the court that really doesn't always show up in the box score. Like he's really good at just hustling and diving for loose balls. He
Yeah.
makes timely shots. Like a lot of times, like he might shoot 2 for 7, but that 1 3 that he made in the second half might be something that changed the entire momentum. And he's just that type of player. And having Dante's ability to stretch the floor, it's hard to find guys even in today's NBA where they're just willing to catch and shoot, and they're shot ready all the time. And I think that's one thing that we take for granted a little bit when we're throwing Dante into trade machines for like a Colin Sexton or something like that, because like Colin Sexton is a good scorer and you could say maybe a better scorer than Dante, but he doesn't bring that shot ready. Because Dante really stretches the floor all the way out to like 30 feet. I mean,
Yeah.
teams have to guard him way out there. Whereas like Colin Sexton, he likes getting downhill. And, he can shoot a little bit, of course, but, not on the level of Dante. I think there's a difference between like a scorer who can shoot and then just a pure shooter. And I think, Dante is one of the few pure shooters in the league, especially since Malik Beasley is no longer in the league at the moment. He and Malik are really those guys who at any moment, they can catch fire from outside.
Dante has a skill set you can't replace from the off ball perspective, like you're saying, the shooting, not needing the ball in his hands, and also just even when he's struggling, right? He's a great hustle player. He's got great energy, great intensity, great feel, and a Kobe White is not replacing that, which is what you need on a championship team. You need players like Dante. You're not getting that from a Quentin Grimes, or Quentin Grimes. You kind of do, but
Yeah.
from Kobe White, Colin Sexton, I absolutely think that you can't trade a Dante for any player like that. If you trade Dante, get a $30-40 million player, not a player like that.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So
You're trading for a star. Like, yeah.
you're trading. He's a piece in a star deal. Exactly.
Yep. Yep.
Ryan.
And before we hop off, I just wanted to share a couple little cool things I found in my dungeon downstairs from being a Wolves fan here. Awesome.
Sweet.
Yeah, so this is a little Timberwolves ball. I wish they still make cool things like this now, but this is like a little Timberwolves ball. It has like Kevin Garnett, Sam Cassell, Latrell Sprewell on it. Super cool. Let's see, what else do we got here? So nowadays on YouTube, you have Track the Pack, but back in the day, you used to have Wolf Tracks. And it's basically the same type of deal. They give you a rundown of like, what's happening in the Wolves world and stuff like that. So Wolf Tracks, pretty cool. And then obviously, a lot of people still have this, but the original Howl Towel from the 2004 playoff run, that was super cool. I got all the new ones too, of course, but keeping that one obviously is is important for any Wolves fan that was around back then.
That was a surprise to me, man. I did not know you were going to show that. Thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah. I had some more if I was inside, but being I'm outside because of our audio difficulties, you know, I took a handful of what I had.
I love that. That was a surprise of the day, my friend. Ryan, that was a great conversation. Thank you so much for being on Wolves Fandom Friday.
Absolutely, man. It was super fun, and I watch your show pretty often, so it's pretty cool to meet you too.
That means the world, man. You can hop on the show anytime. And everybody, if you ever want to be on Wolves Fandom Friday, it's the opportunity to be on a show and give your Timberwolves takes throughout the season. We do this every Friday. We have a fan-oriented show on Fridays. Usually we get fans on, and that's the goal, to have one on every single week. So if you ever want to be on Wolves Fandom Friday, email me, wilder@wilderadams.com, or DM me just like Ryan did and get on the show. It is always awesome to just have this community where we can all share our thoughts and our takes and, trauma bond together in a lot of ways. So thank you all so
Absolutely.
much, Ryan. It was a pleasure. And this is Wilder Wolves Hall of
Go
Fame.
Wolves!
Go Wolves! Hall of
Yeah.
Fame mode fandom.